Hello and welcome to the Ripples podcast. I am your host today, Jess Archer, and with me, we're episode 11. I forgot to say episode
It's
11,
okay.
so that's important. And with me today, I'm joined by Michael Dorinda, and we are not joined by Greg Skirman, who is apparently unwell. So,
Unwell.
yeah.
Yeah.
How are you today, Michael?
I'm going well. We talked before. I look like I've just rolled out of bed because it's been cold in Adelaide. And so I've been wearing a beanie for like the last 2 days. So my hair is all over the place. It looks like I just rolled out of
I
bed.
I thought it looked intentional, so
That's the thing now. So many
it's a
people
win.
have the just rolled out of bed look that you never know.
Yes. Hmm.
But yes, no, it is because I just rolled out of bed. Not literally. Like I got out of bed hours ago because I have small children, so there's no sleep-ins on a school day. But thank you, thank you very much for joining us. I think you being here, sort of 11 episodes into this episode now, is nice. But you are kind of the genesis of this podcast, if you think about it, because this podcast started on the back of Laracon AU last year, and off the back of like my welcome and introduction to the conference. And a lot of that was focused on my personal story, but a lot of that when we transitioned into talking about why you'd come to a Laracon specifically, but to any conference really, was, using you as the centerpiece of, like, you came into Laracon AU in 2018, and then you spoke at 2019, and then you ended up working at Laravel on on the back of all of that, putting yourself out there. Not certainly not anything to do with me. I don't want to take credit for that, so don't take it the wrong way. But because of those opportunities that you took to put yourself out there, you kind of ended up where you are now. And so it's nice to have you on the show to kind of tell it from your perspective rather than me just making jokes about your apparent inability to wear different kinds of glasses.
I
So
mean,
yeah.
yeah, I do feel you deserve some credit because you definitely were very supportive and encouraging um, in terms of me speaking and all that sort of stuff. And then it was kind of like, yeah, like the ripples effect or this dominoes thing that, like that in itself wasn't the thing that got me to where I am, but it was one of the many pieces that helped contribute to it. I think with any of this sort of stuff, no one action is probably going to be
Yeah.
the thing that makes something happen. It's a series of things.
Yeah.
And in my case, I think it was just, having done quite a few things. And then when Taylor had a job, he already knew who I was, but not just because of Laracon, but that was probably a big thing was Laracon, but then also just framework contributions, podcasts I did with JMac, all these little bits and pieces meant that I was on his radar.
Mm.
And so then I guess that just made him look at my resume maybe a little bit harder than he might look at someone he'd never heard of. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I think, you know, it's the little push, out the plane. You've already got the parachute on.
Yeah.
You know what you need to do. It's just sometimes you need someone to to give you that nudge. We do that with my kids with band-aids. I say I'll count to three,
Okay.
and we'll count to three and we'll take the band-aid off. So it's like 1, 2, band-aid, three. And then they're
Hmm.
like, but you said three. I said, well, I said we'd count to three and we'd get the band-aid off. I didn't say it would necessarily be in that order. So yeah, it's and we've got that a little bit again this year. We have that with each of the Laracons, is that there's first timers. And I spoke last episode, I think I've mentioned it a few times now, that Laracon AU in the scheme of things is probably a really approachable one to put yourself out there if you're not sure about
I
speaking,
agree.
because it's like,
Hmm.
in the scale of Laracons, US is 900 people, India's 1,000 people or whatever it is, Europe's 800 people. We're a little dinky 400 person conference. It's easier to
Yeah.
stand up in front of 400 people than it is to travel 30 hours on the other side of the world in a room full of people that you don't know. And so we really try and provide those opportunities. People, we're not going
Yeah.
to force anyone to do anything that they don't want to do, but if they're like on the precipice of,
Hmm.
I want to do it, but I'm not sure, if it's right for me. I certainly want to be the one to kind of encourage as much as possible and like push you out the door and do it.
Yes. And I think all Laracon audiences are very, very supportive. but I do feel like the Aussie audience is maybe just got that little
Mm.
edge with our, I don't know.
I think it's because
I'm
we're a little
biased,
bit
but I
laid
think
back.
Aussies are super nice. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Really laid back. So it's like, yeah, it's cool.
we're
It's fine.
we're very laid back. I think, you know, Laracon US is the set piece. It's the premium of all of the conferences. Like, we know that we're
Flagship.
going to get a big set of, like, you know, huge number of eyeballs across it. Everyone's really putting in 100%, and nobody wants to let anyone else down.
Mhm.
And, you know, not that anyone goes out to speak at any conference with the intention to let anyone down, but there's, you know, that level of, you're bringing yourself up to a certain level of expectation. So,
Mhm.
but we try and get all of the speakers, you know, to become chummy ahead of time,
Mhm.
to become friends, to support each other, because, you know, it's the experience of those other speakers that have done it before that really get you into the frame of mind that, yeah, you can actually do it no matter what you think. Um,
Definitely.
and, you
I
know,
think having the mixture of both is really good. I mean, I'm still nervous before every single
yeah,
one, but now that I've done it a few times, I can try and be supportive to the other people. Whereas the first time, it was like I needed all the support.
yeah, yeah. So, you know, we spoke about kind of that. Well, I spoke about that journey, as I said at the top of the show, from my perspective of what it was like for you. But tell us about your perspective, where that was, of like being an audience member, being a
Mhm.
participant, to then being a speaker, to then taking off to the world stage, doing it. Because you've done all of them. Have you done Europe?
Yeah, I've
Yeah. So you've
done
done
every
every
Laracon, and
Laracon.
I've done some multiple times.
Yeah. So tell us, you know, what was your mindset from coming into first experiencing the Laravel community back in 2018?
So I've been developing coding in PHP for a very long time. I don't, necessarily want to reveal
Don't
my
date
age,
yourself,
but
no.
I'm maybe older than most people might think. But was always kind of like a lurker. I've always kind of considered that, I was never really active online. I didn't even really know there was a community. So I was a big fan of Laravel, big fan of like Jeffrey Way. Like I followed a lot of his stuff, but I didn't even have a Twitter account or anything like that. Um, I knew who people like Taylor and Adam were, but I didn't really know like the rest of the
Mhm.
community. But I heard about Laracon AU, the first one, which was 2018, right? Um, and went along to that one with my colleagues at the job I was at the time. And to me, this was probably the biggest catalyst in terms of my career, more so than the speaking part. This was like the main
Mhm.
catalyst, was going to Laracon and seeing the community and finding all these people that I really, really connected with. We had this shared passion for this PHP framework, and just finding all these people that were like me. Like I knew other people that I'd worked with and stuff that used Laravel, but I don't know. There was like this whole new bunch of people that were like super, super passionate as I was about Laravel. So I've mentioned it before, but I joined Twitter at the airport on the way home from
Mhm.
Laracon. The first Laracon was when I actually joined Twitter. And I can't remember what my first tweets or anything were, but I was like, I want to give back to the community. I want to be part of this community. Um, the very first thing I did was create a Z Shell plugin for Artisan. So Z Shell had like a Artisan or Laravel kind of thing, but it didn't really do the things I wanted it to
Mhm.
do. So I was like, I want to get like full completion. I wanted it to work no matter where you were in the project directory. So if you'd like CD'd into your migrations directory, I wanted to be able to still run Artisan from in
Mhm.
there. Um, so I built a plugin that would do that. It would kind of find where Artisan was. It would like travel up the tree and find where it was, and then run the command, and it would inject all the completion. So you would kind of know the arguments and all that sort of stuff. So that was kind of my first contribution. I put that out into the world. I think I got followed by that Learning Laravel Twitter account.
Mhm.
And I thought, holy crap, this is really exciting. But then I realized they end up, I don't even know what that account is, but they seem to follow everybody
Yeah.
that just mentions
Yeah.
Laravel. Not to throw any shade on them or anything,
Mhm.
but I found that really special at the time. Um, and yeah, I mean, it feels a little bit bad to say, but that was probably also the catalyst that made me look at getting a new job. Um, the job I was at was mostly like a legacy PHP application, and we had a greenfield application that we built, and then I pushed for it all to be in Laravel. It was super, super fun. But then when that went into its maintenance phase, I kind of went back over to the legacy
Yeah.
one, and I really just wanted to like rewrite the whole thing in Laravel. But
Mhm.
this was like a 10-year-old application that was like doing, interacting with governments, all this sort
Yeah.
of stuff.
So it's
It was
hard.
super, super hard to change. But I was just so eager. I wanted to do the Tailwind things because I'd learnt about utility CSS from Simon at Laracon, at the first Laracon. So yeah, I was just so inspired to do stuff. And so yeah, I ended up quitting that job when I discovered that I couldn't make the change that I wanted to make within the company.
Yeah.
Not that it was their fault or anything; they had good reasons, but yeah. So I was infected by the Laravel community. I then went to Laracon New York, paid my own way for that. This was after I'd left the company, and I think I was trying to start my own business at this point, like this Gifty Duck thing that was like my own little SaaS. I just wanted to like do my own thing. So I went to New York, met Taylor. It was really exciting. I forgot to mention at the very first Laracon, I was too nervous to talk to anybody. So I didn't talk to Taylor or Adam or anyone. I was just way too nervous. I think I spoke to you and was even nervous about that because I'd started listening to your podcast. It's like, it's Michael Dorinda. Oh my goodness. So yeah, went to New York. That was amazing. You were in New York. And we were kind of talking about, you were kind of encouraging me to submit a talk for Laracon AU. And that was, I don't know, I like the idea of it, but I didn't know what to talk about. I always have this thing, and it's kind of weird to talk about, but like, I always worry that being a bit of a minority in the community, that people want me to do stuff so that there's like visibility and whatnot. But I worry people want me to do things for the wrong reasons. And just to have me there so that, I can tick off some sort of quota or something. One thing I really appreciated that you did was, I think the first talk I suggested was like a Vim talk, because I was just like, that's the thing that I'm super passionate about. And I didn't feel qualified to talk about Laravel, but I thought if I could do something that was like Laravel adjacent in some way, that I could actually teach people something, because I didn't think I had anything to teach the Laravel audience.
Yeah.
But the thing that I really appreciated was you actually kind of talked me out of doing the Vim talk. And that, in my own brain way of thinking, was like, no, you actually want me to do, like, you actually care about what the talk is and stuff. You don't want me there just to tick off a box and like, yeah, Jess can talk about whatever, it ticks the box. It was like, no, you actually want me to, like, you actually care about the content, not just me. So that was really helpful. Ended up doing a talk about Vue, which was really fun. And that kind of filled that whole thing in my head of like Laravel adjacent, so that I can hopefully actually have something to teach people that they wouldn't already know. So that was really fun. Did that. It was terrifying doing that talk. But then it kind of just went from there. I started submitting to other conferences. I submitted for Laracon US, and I got accepted to speak in Atlanta. There was going to be this massive like aquarium behind the stage with fish and stuff in it, and that sounded really exciting. And then COVID killed that,
everything,
which was very, very sad.
So
then I spoke at Laracon online. Yeah, I would be cool to. It would be cool to go back there.
You've got to fulfill that dream. It has to happen.
I know,
at some point.
Exactly. But yeah, so I spoke at, like, it turned into a Laracon online, and I spoke there. Laracon online I found quite hard because, well, one, I had to get up at, I don't know, 3 a.m. or something to do the talk. But there was something really weird about, like, I was still really nervous.
Yeah.
But then when I did the talk, and it was just like quiet.
Yeah.
And it kind of felt empty and weirdly alone. I've done other like stuff since then that I've enjoyed, but that first one, I don't know. I had all these feelings about my first Laracon talk that I did in person that I thought would happen again for the other one, and it didn't.
It's the audience really makes it. As much as the audience terrifies you, as a first-time speaker, but even as an experienced speaker who kind of gets nervous about getting on stage, there's something about the energy of those people, that feedback. If you don't get it, if you, not even if you're telling jokes, but just the reception, the nods, the people, understanding what you're talking about, without any of that feedback, it's not quite the same. And so I think online is actually harder to give a talk than in front of an audience.
And it didn't kind of, like, I'd put so much effort into the talk, but when it was over, I didn't feel the same sort of satisfaction of like, that was all worth it kind of thing.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I've since done. I did like the Laravel Worldwide meetup recently, and I gave a talk that I'd already given in Europe and India,
Hmm.
and I had a lot of fun with that one. I think the thing that really helped with that was after the talk, there was a big Q&A from the like people could submit stuff, but the hosts were asking
Hmm.
questions, and that was probably my favorite part of the whole thing was actually the Q&A
Yeah.
afterwards. So as much as I feel like I'm an introvert, I actually do think that the human interaction side of conferences
Yeah,
is very
it's
important.
it's funny, isn't it? Because we all I think the majority of us developers see ourselves as introverts, but until you put us in a situation where we're surrounded by like all of us together, because we
Yeah.
realize that whilst we are introverted in general social situations, when it comes to talking to people that have the exact same interests as us, that are there for the same reasons as us in a lot of situations, it's much easier to have the conversations. And like we still get nervous about, you know, speaking with other people,
Absolutely.
especially ones that we don't know. But we have to remember that we've all got, like, we all have a common point of reference for being at a Laracon.
Hmm.
And, you know, we're all there to learn about Laravel. We're all there to be excited by, you know, sharing what we're doing, but also sharing with other people what they're doing. And it
Hmm.
does actually turn you into an extrovert for those 2 days, 2 and a bit days.
Definitely. You still crash hard at the end of it when you need your alone time and whatnot. Every night I get back
Situational
to the hotel, it's just like,
extrovertedness.
yes, yes, definitely. Um, so yeah, I think that kind of yeah. I spoke then at I guess like I got on the Laravel team some point in there. There was kind
Mm,
of this weird hiatus. COVID changes
yeah.
my perception of time. Um, but yeah, I joined the Laravel team, and then since then I've spoken at India twice, EU once, and then I spoke again at Laracon AU. Um,
You didn't just speak.
I
You launched a product that you built.
I would launch. Yes, I did launch a product. I've launched two products I've built now, which is quite amazing. I mean, Taylor has traditionally always launched everything.
Hmm.
Um, so for me to get to launch, prompts would have been the first thing I launched.
Hmm.
And that was, yeah, he let me launch it. I didn't even have to like convince him. I don't even remember how it happened.
Yeah. You built it.
It was just
You
kind of,
launch it. Yeah.
yeah. And not that he wouldn't have been able to do an amazing job. Like he understands how it all
Hmm.
works and all that, and could have done an amazing job of it. But I really appreciated being able to do it. And for that one in particular, I feel like just because terminals are like my obsession, um, yeah, I was able to give it a lot of enthusiasm. But that talk in Nashville was probably the funnest talk I'd ever done. And partly there were some spots where I had to stop because of like clapping and whatnot, which was just a weird kind of
Yeah.
high I can't even explain. I think I just had this like stupid grin on my face the whole
Yeah.
time. Um, but that was just like a super fun talk, and it was probably the one I've enjoyed the most. I think I actually enjoyed it while I was giving it as well.
Hmm.
I think every other talk prior to that, I was purely nervous the entire time, and I wasn't able to actually enjoy the
Yeah.
experience. I was glad I did it, and I did have fun for the whole process. But the actual talk giving thing was just
Yeah.
like my anxiety was just so strong that I couldn't even enjoy it. But in Nashville, I felt that I've done it enough times now
Hmm.
that although I was still terrified, I still remember standing backstage when like Aaron was going to call me up, and I was just like kind of wishing that
It was
I don't
already
know,
happened.
it just wouldn't
Yeah.
happen. It's like,
And this is.
but I have this thing that I do that's I always want to try and push myself out of my comfort zone,
Hmm.
and the way I tend to do that is imagine how I would feel if I didn't do something.
Hmm.
And by imagining, by kind of just pretending like, oh yeah, you didn't submit the talk, you went to the conference as just an attendee, and you looked at the people up on stage. Imagine that feeling when you go, I could have been up
Yeah.
there, like I could have submitted and I could have tried. That's the feeling that motivates me to do things that terrify me.
Hmm.
That's applying at Laravel. All the different things have all been stuff that has been very, very scary, but the fear of not doing it is greater than the fear of doing it.
FOMO. The FOMO is always stronger than the fear of
Exactly.
missing
Yeah.
out.
I You can use FOMO to your advantage.
Yeah. Yeah. Fear of missing out is not just, you know, oh, I'm sad that it didn't happen, but like, you know, how much worse would I feel because it didn't happen? And like you
Exactly.
said, the excitement of getting up on stage to give that talk for that thing that I think we all know that you are extremely passionate about, the terminal. And because you're passionate about it and because you built that, you built prompts and because you knew it inside and out and you had practiced that talk over and over again, you know that when you get up on stage that you know what you're doing and how
Mm.
to present it. And yeah,
Yep.
Taylor knows how it works and he could have done it, but I don't think he would have presented it with the same energy as the person that created it. And Taylor does that
Yeah.
with the things that he has built. There's just that
Yes.
little bit more passion and energy for the things that you have built versus the things that you're showing that someone else has built. That kind of, it's
Yeah.
easier to just breeze by them compared to the
Yeah.
stuff that you have personally invested time into. So, and I think that's an important thing for anyone that is wanting to, but are like not sure that they're the person. Of course, you're the person. You're the person that's been working on this thing for 6 months, or that you've been working with this technology for 5 years or 10 years or whatever. Like you have
Mhm.
the passion and the energy for it, and you know it like the back of your hand. It's just that because you've been doing it for 5 or 10 years, you forget that you have that passion. You wouldn't be doing it for so long if you didn't enjoy it. So yeah, it's
I have this thing where I assume that once I've learned something, that I'm last to learn it and that everyone else already knew it.
yeah,
And I'm only just figuring it out. And so there's no point me trying to tell anyone else about it because they already knew,
yeah,
which is not true. There's definitely people that do already know it, but there's a lot of people that don't. And so it is worthwhile
yeah.
doing that. But I think one of the biggest hacks for like conference talks is talking about the thing you're most excited about, like right now,
Mhm.
and not just trying to come up with something that's like gonna fit.
Yeah.
It's like
That's my
it's actually
job.
really
I will
important that
find the
it's the
things that
thing.
fit. You find the thing that you're excited
Yeah,
about.
exactly. So if the thing that I'm currently excited about is not something that fits, then it's not the right time for me to give that
Yeah.
talk, right?
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that's kind of my policy now is that all my talks are going to be things that I'm currently excited about and really in depth on. They don't have to be things that I'm a complete expert on and have been using for like a million years, because that's kind of the things I reach for is like
Mhm.
what's stuff that I know really, really well. But some of those aren't things that I'm currently excited
Yeah.
about. So they can be a bit harder to do. There are things that I'm just perpetually excited
Yeah.
about, like Vim and terminals and whatnot. But
Yeah. Yeah. I wanted
um,
to circle back. You said that, you originally wanted to give the talk on Vim when you
mhm.
submitted in 2019
Yeah.
because that was the thing that you were passionate about. And me also being a passionate Vim user told you no, don't talk about
Yeah,
that.
no one else uses this. It's only
Because
like
yeah,
us
no
two.
one no one I mean now I think there's a bit more a few more
There
people
is
in
a
the
shift.
community that are using it and trying it out, and it does a lot more things, especially since NeoVim's kind of blown up in the last few years. But
Hmm.
I think that's an important thing that when we look at our speakers, we don't look to tick boxes, and
Hmm.
um, nothing frustrates me more than when it's an underrepresented group, person from an underrepresented group putting up like you know a softball in terms of a talk.
Mm. Yeah.
How I overcame circumstance or whatever, like those kind of, it's like those are not the things that resonate with an audience. Those are things that like resonate with you in the specific. But
Hmm.
when you submit to a talk, like you're part of this community and you know how to do what you do. Like you have a job as a programmer because you're good at what you do as a programmer. So that's what we want to hear. That's what we want to see
Yeah.
on the stage. And it's frustrating, as a straight white male, it frustrates me to see those kind of low effort. Like I know it's hard to put yourself out there for a talk. Don't get me wrong,
Yeah.
but it's low effort in the terms of like you could be talking about a technical subject because you are qualified to talk about a technical subject, but you choose the quote unquote easy path out, and it's frustrating
Mm.
because I'm like I'd love to have you on the stage, but not not for that talk. I want to see,
Yeah.
don't come up here because you think you're going to be a checkbox on a list. Come up here because you have something valuable to say that,
Hmm.
we don't look for, you know, um, those things. We look for interesting topics. and it doesn't matter
Yeah.
who's presenting them. Um,
Hmm.
and so I think if you are from an underrepresented group, Laracon is a very good audience to present because we feed off ideas and energy. We don't feed off who you are or where you came from or any of that kind of stuff. So if you've ever been worried about being in that position and submitting, then Laracon is the conference that you want to go to and speak. Whether it's here, whether it's any of the other ones, um, we want ideas, we want energy, we want your passion. That's where it is. So yeah,
Yeah.
it is. Yeah, as I say, it's frustrating to see those kind of talks coming from those kinds of people
Mm, yeah.
because you
And
can
I've,
you can do more and you are
yeah,
capable of so much more than you think.
yes. And I've always felt very supported in the Laravel community, um, even though, especially like, I think like first Laracon was probably like maybe 3 women total. Um, but I didn't feel like an outsider
Yeah,
because of it.
yeah.
And that was just, I guess the attitude in there. We were all there for the code and for Laravel, all
Hmm.
that sort of stuff, right? Like it didn't really matter who you were, what you look like, or anything like that. It's just about our shared passion for something.
Hmm.
And so in that respect, none of us are a minority in that. Like we'll be minorities in different areas,
Yeah,
but we're all in the majority in terms
yeah.
of our love for
In the
this
Laravel
particular
community,
framework.
you're a member of the Laravel community, and that's
Exactly.
where you might be new to Laravel or new to programming or experienced, but you are still a
Hmm.
member of the Laravel community, irrespective of
Exactly.
how long you've been there or where you came from or your background or
Hmm.
whether it's social or economic or gender or race or any, like, you're just a member of the Laravel community. And like online
Exactly.
we're all just members of the Laravel community.
Hmm.
So yeah,
Yeah.
don't frustrate me with your softballs.
I mean, I prefer to do technical
Mhm.
talks because I find them easier. Like you've seen like Aaron's talk where he pours his heart out on stage
Yeah,
and it's
yeah,
it's a non-technical
we
talk.
all cry with
That
Aaron,
kind of
right?
talk terrifies
Yeah,
me way
yeah.
more than like a live coding talk. I'll live code all day before I do
Bearing your soul is
that kind
much
of talk.
harder than making a typo on
Yes.
stage.
Yes. And yeah, like live coding is wasn't as scary as I thought that was going to
Yeah,
be. I've done a few live coding talks now, and that as long as you put the right guardrails in
yeah.
place and
And look,
whatnot, and have
everyone's
some
in awe of
fallbacks,
the
and
fact that
that's
you
all
were just
fine.
zooming through the file with all your key bindings anyway. No one's like, well, you made a typo. No, I wasn't making a typo.
Yeah.
I was typing yank, yank, paste, 3P. Like, don't worry about it.
When I did my Laracasts course about Vim,
Hmm.
I agonized over like getting everything exactly perfect. And there was a thread on Twitter recently about this. I think it was to do with Aaron and that about like including some mistakes is actually
Yeah,
good. It shows one, it shows that, it lets people know who are watching it that that's not like what they're aspiring to be is this person that is like completely
hmm,
perfect because no one is completely
yeah,
perfect. So one, it kind of lets them know that when they make mistakes, that's actually okay. Even the person that's teaching me makes mistakes. And then it also, probably more importantly, shows how the person deals with it. Typos obviously are fine, like
yeah,
everyone knows how to fix a typo, but when something else goes wrong, as long as it doesn't like derail the
yeah,
entire thing,
yeah.
those little things are sometimes where some of the best like nuggets come
Yeah.
from.
And I think what you need to get good at is not making mistakes. It's recovering
Handling
from them,
them.
right? Oh, you all saw that. It's happened to
Yeah,
Taylor as well.
definitely.
Missing semicolons and things like that. The audience is there. They'll point that out. There's 900 people there. There's 400 people there. They'll tell you if you missed a semicolon.
Exactly. And at the Laracon AU where I first spoke, which would have been 2019, Frake was there as well.
Hmm.
And he was on before me and he had something go wrong with his talk. Some sort of a technical thing in PHP Storm. I don't remember the details of it. But for me, that's a real standout memory because he handled it so
Yeah.
well. He kept talking, which I think is probably the most important thing to do when something goes wrong is to keep
Yeah.
talking. Just even if you're just saying out loud what you're doing, just not having the silence
Yeah.
immediately makes the whole thing not awkward. The only time it gets awkward is when like the person kind of goes silent.
Mm-hmm.
He tried a little bit, he made some jokes,
Yeah.
and I don't even remember if he fixed it or not. It kind of didn't matter because he gave it a bit of a thing, and then I think he just moved
Yeah.
on.
Move on to the next thing.
Give it 30 seconds, keep talking. If it doesn't work,
Mhm.
move on. And it's fine. And the whole talk was amazing.
Yep.
And then like Daniel's talk in Australia,
Last
that
year.
went off the rails for a little bit there. And that was my favorite part of the talk was once it went off the rails because we got that whole phrase of like, if the tests don't pass,
Just delete them.
Just delete the tests. Which is probably the best joke that's ever been made at a Laravel conference.
Yep.
So yeah, don't be, I guess, afraid of making mistakes. Kind of expect that something will go wrong,
Yep.
and just figure out how you'll deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
And just don't stop talking is probably the most important thing I would say.
Yeah. And hosting and emceeing a conference for 2 days, every time I stand on stage and start talking, there is an expectation that something is about to go wrong. So the best preparation is in, getting ready for that. And not to practice. Like you move your fingers one key to the left or one key to the right or whatever on the keyboard, and you've suddenly typed an entirely incoherent piece of code. So yeah, recovery is the thing that you should focus on. And we spoke about this a couple of episodes ago. Like the hack around covering for the fact that you lost your place is to use silence to your advantage, to pause, to like let a message sit with the audience so that they can absorb it, to like take a sip of water. No one's gonna think twice that you've stopped to take a sip of water because you're on stage, the lights are on you, it's hard. So, if you start that from the beginning, then people are not going to think twice when you go, I don't know where I'm at, or my slides are not moving forward, or I've lost my spot in the speaker notes, because you've just gone to pick up a bottle of water and have a sip while you figure out where you're up to. So there's lots of creative ways to kind of work through and around mistakes and hiccups and whatever else.
There's been a few times where I've gotten to the next slide and then realized I forgot to say something on the previous one. And this wasn't intentional, but I feel like what I have done in those situations was I almost feel excited. I'm like, oh, I forgot to tell you about something. Let's go back.
Yeah.
And just like, instead of it being, I don't know, weird, it was like, it was just like, I don't know. I was like, oh yeah, let's go back and talk about this other thing.
Yeah.
I remember it happened in India because I had gotten very, very sick. I missed the whole first day of the conference.
Yes, I heard everyone got sick. It was
everyone got sick. And so that was a really I was not well even doing the talk, but I'd gotten well enough to do it. But I think the talk took like 45 minutes instead of 30 minutes. I haven't watched it back to see how incoherent it was, but I feel like it went well, even though I know I had a few little areas where I got a little bit jumbled. I felt that I still, I don't know, I didn't ignore it. I kind of was like, yeah, let's just go back. And yeah.
Excellent.
As long as it looked like I was having fun, I figured then the audience will have fun. If it looks like you're just up there just like panicking and silent and all that, then the audience feels awkward for you.
Yeah. Yep.
Not because they're feeling like judgment or angry at you or anything like that. They're wanting you to succeed. And so then they get a bit tense when they feel like you're not having a good time because they want you to have a good time. So if you fail, have a good time about it, and then it won't be awkward.
Yeah, that's right. Which is like easier said than done, but
oh, definitely, absolutely.
Plan for the worst, and everything will be fine. Now, the last thing that I wanted to touch on before we depart is, you are now like full time at Laravel. Most people probably don't know this. That you're only 3 days a week before, 4 days a week.
I was 3 days a week for basically the first 2 years that I worked at Laravel. But recently, like, I don't know, the last 2 months or 3 months or so, have gone full time. I also haven't shared this like publicly, not for any particular reason, but I also got a promotion.
Hey, congrats.
Thank you. I am, engineering team lead.
APAC region.
For the Australia Pacific region.
Awesome.
Which is just me and Tim at the moment, which is kind of awkward because Tim and I are like really good friends. He's basically my best friend. And at like we worked together at a previous company, and we both quit that company to work at Laravel But at the previous company, he was technically my boss.
Yeah.
And
turns
now
the
I'm
table.
technically his boss, but the way we work together is just very collaborative. It's not
Mhm.
even like it's really even a thing. But yes, I got a promotion, which was very exciting.
Excellent. That's great.
I do need to figure out how to do some things that are not coding, which is interesting.
Mhm.
I kind of resisted anytime someone kind of pushed me towards that sort of stuff. I resisted it because I just wanted to work with the code all day.
Mhm.
But at Laravel, because I'm just like, this is like the dream job. It's the thing I really enjoy doing. I figured this is actually the right place to do.
Yeah.
Maybe take some next steps in terms of my career, and 95% of my time is still coding. So
Structural formality as Laravel, grows up as an organization. So, I'm excited to see what's on the horizon for you, and for Tim.
Me too.
I say this as though you're not older than I am. That I'm excited for what you've got on the horizon.
Mm-hmm.
But I've always been excited about what what you've brought to the community ever since
Thank you.
that first Laracon. I'm excited for the future of what Laravel and the APAC region brings us. We've seen
Mm-hmm.
Prompts, which was your baby. We've seen Pulse that you and Tim worked on.
Mm-hmm.
Taylor mentioned on the last Laravel podcast that you're kind of the little Laravel R&D department now,
Yes.
because you and Tim working in a similar time zone makes it easier than working with either the guys in the UK or in the US. So I'm excited to see what comes out of that, because you both are extremely talented engineers, and have shown time and again that you bring incredible tooling and stuff to the Laravel community that we're always very appreciative of. So good luck to the future. I hope to
Thank you.
see you. Well, I look forward to seeing you at Laracon in November.
Laracon. Yep.
And good luck with speaking. You are speaking in August, aren't you? Maybe.
Don't know.
Who knows?
Maybe. We'll
Maybe.
see.
Maybe not.
There's maybe. Yeah.
Cool. Well,
Wink.
thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for, as I said, everything that you do and will do in the future
Thank you for having
for
me.
us. And
Thank you for everything you've done for me as well. Like I said, that was multiple catalysts
yeah,
that were attendee catalyst and then speaking catalyst, with just all these little jumping off points that
that can be my official um, community moniker, is the Band-Aid puller, the domino pusher. Excellent. Well, this has been episode 11 of the Ripples podcast. You can find us on YouTube, on X, formerly Twitter, at Ripples FM. You can find Jess at Jess Archer Codes on X.
Correct.
Greg is at Greg Skerman. He's unwell. He's eating steak or something. So we will be back here in 2 weeks. We have another interview lined up for next episode. So look forward to bringing that to everyone. And if you would like to be part of the podcast and tell your story, then hit us up on socials. But until next time, see you later.
Bye.